Welcome to the first bonus episode of Why Not Both? This episode was recorded at my friend Freyja Eilíf's gallery when I was with her in Reykjavik, and I dearly miss being able to spend time with her. And so I decided that she would be the perfect choice for our first bonus episode so that you get to enjoy what it's like being able to spend time with her too. Hello, I am here with Freyja Eilíf.
Hello, Pam. Pam.
Sorry. We've been practicing each other's names.
Mm-hmm. Going well.
Welcome to Why Not Both? The first question that I always ask people is, what do you do? And what might be a better question than what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I keep myself busy being an artist most days, and I run an experimental exhibition venue in Reykjavik, or as it's called, a museum of perceptive art. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm going to post photos of this space because it's crazy. I'm looking at the pink room right now that everyone will get to see.
Yeah.
And it's very different running a gallery space to actually creating the art. Like, it's very different headspaces, it seems.
Well, I'm not so sure because creating the venue and the place for something to happen is actually something that is so important for art to be presented or available or exhibited or in the presence of somebody anywhere. So I don't know. I didn't have anything in mind when I opened this space. I just wanted art to happen, and I wanted my own art to happen and somebody else's. It was more of a just opening for something like a stream of flow. But with year, like now, this is the sixth year of this space being a gallery or an art space, and I've developed the concept of it to fit as a space being directed by somebody who is also active as an artist, and that's why you can see that I'm being very creative here myself, because it's just something that's very important, and it's hard for me to have that shut down and only serve a role as a curator. Actually, I learned through this job through running this space that I'm perhaps not so much of a curator. I'm more of a runner of a place or the director. So so that here we have an exhibition curated by somebody else. Mm-hmm. So that really worked well, and I was taking care of the rest. And I think that things.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes so important to kind of like learn by doing, that you're like, okay, this I'm totally on. This is not so much what I want to do. Like, this is maybe not my strength.
Definitely. Like, that's done for me.
What would you describe as kind of the difference between kind of running a space and being like a creative director behind it versus curating? Like, what to you felt different?
Well, I think I personally just got very lost. Like, I am completely incapable of curating a show without including myself, because my creative forces just take all power over me when something like this is happening, and I just start building work, or and so that's how I work. And I learned that actually, if you want to be good at curating, you're not exhibiting in the show. You're taking care of everything else.
I see.
With many, I did some attempts at curating shows where I didn't include myself, and then I usually included myself at the end. I was like, whatever, I'm putting in a painting by myself. Yeah, nobody can say anything because I'm the curator of this show.
The curator.
So I decide.
Complain.
So I realized that that was definitely not the role for me. So here I'm in this, and that's the why the name museum comes in, is because this is going to be a space for curated exhibitions, so that curators come in and they can create an exhibition,
right? And
that actually takes that role from me.
Yes.
And I become the director of the museum, and I assist the curators and not the artists. Somehow that
makes
allows
sense.
me to be the artist at the same time. And I have some other things going on here. So the space we're in is divided in three spaces. So there's an exhibition hall and community hall, as we could say, that we're in right now.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's the space that I'm looking at, like behind you, that has the works of several different artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I stuffed my own work in the community hall, which keeps my my needs, of my.
But your work, like looking at it, the way that you organize the space, it's almost like you have kind of your section, and then you have the section where it's more curated works of other artists, because this very much where we're sitting feels like your realm.
Yeah, and it should just feel like a living room,
Yeah.
It's and it's kind of has a living room, atmosphere where people can just stay and get, take themselves out of the exhibition and sit down. And it's also, a creative work, even though it's very mundane, but in a way it's a way of directing people how they come into a space and how they react to their environment, and how colors, and even just if there is a place to sit down. And because now there's a lot of places to sit down here and even lie down.
I was gonna say, like, speaking of when you said like kind of curating the space, like looking at the pink room, I remember during, like, because I was here for Freyja's art opening this weekend, seeing people's reaction to that room. People immediately, like, flopped onto the floor, basically. They just were, like, immediately like, oh, this is what we do here.
Yeah.
And that was unusual, because usually when you go to an opening, people are, not flopped on the floor.
Yeah, and that's what I really wanted to have. Like, if people could enter a venue like this, like cats, and just throw themselves at the floor.
Yes.
Because I really like doing that myself wherever I am. I like to view things, and then I want to throw myself at the floor and feel really out of my flesh. And that's what it's called. It's the flesh room.
Yeah.
And the texture is to imitate something within your body. From
it's like a womb or a heart.
Yeah.
And it's cool because it looks almost like tie-dyed. Like, it's really cool. And I love what you did with, like, that you matched kind of like the cushions on the floor to the walls, so that it was all congruous. It's all like, it's one beautiful space.
And the candles, they're also sculpted in the same way, so they look like flesh, and then they're burned down, so it's a way of to transcend the flesh. And this space is actually going to be used for experiments with going into journeys, and I'm going to use this section of the museum for experiments where I'm mixing contemporary art practices with journeying and meditating. So that was the original idea for that room, but then it's open also for venues. But then for the section where we're at, where it's just possible to sit down, I found that when you enter a space and you see that it's possible to sit down, you instantly feel more at ease.
Yes.
Even though you won't sit down. So that's why I wanted to have this living room included, so that people feel comfortable and feel more close and intimate to each other, because it's also about bringing people together and creating connections.
And that's a different entryway into the art. Like, that kind of speaks to, it's like your creation of the space is almost, it reminds me of like a journey practice within its own right.
Yeah, all decisions are also made from that work process that I seek answers from my guidance, and I go within to see what's right. So I usually, for a year or two almost, I've known that this space was going to go through drastic changes, and I wasn't just, I was getting like keys from, many places, from my travels, from my dreams, from all kinds of weird corners, stones,
yes,
and plants even. So, and then it just finally, and it's actually just a month ago that it all came together. All the threads, somehow found each other,
wove together,
and the name for the space came, and I journeyed with the totem animal of the space that I call, which is the snake, which forms the @ symbol.
Yes.
And that's actually work that I did a long time ago, but it was around a time that I could feel something was about to change, like big time. And I wanted to have a spirit guidance for the museum as an entity. So I did go and journey into that just to find something. I didn't know what was to come, but this old image that I had actually created as a logo for something else, for a totally different project. Yeah. But the snake came and he was a bit offended, you know. He was, you know, well, he was kind, you know. Of course, he wasn't, you know, mean to me, but he was a bit
it's like, why'd you push me aside for that? I was meant for this.
He was a bit confused. He was, you know, felt like he had been on the shelf for too long. So it all came back, you know, together so easily when I started working like that, and just somehow happened.
Yes.
Very quick. And now it feels complete, like something that was just growing secretly within me for a very long time. And then you were
like gestating, and then it...
And then it's also a mixture of two different worlds, because it is contemporary art being presented in curated ways, bringing groups of people together from very different directions, from age, you know, young people, very established, and different media. And then I'm also adding my practice and offering existential services here.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know more about, because I know that right now the menu is only in Icelandic. And I was like, I want to know more about that.
Yeah, the reason the menu is only in Icelandic is that it took me a long time to create words for what I'm doing. Gotcha. It's a remix from old systems, but presented in a very creative way. Right. But it's real. It's really an existential service. It's not like a facet or a performance. You know, I'm going deep with that work.
You're going deep with the people that you're attending to.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. But I was just wanted to present it in a very personalized way that belongs to this space and, you know, this museum. So when I had it in English, it was a bit belonged to ancient culture. So I'm using astrology, numerology, shamanism, healing, and methods that I've learned from teachers from these practices, but I'm presenting them in a very creative way.
And it would be hard, I would assume, because of like the cultural difference of like the ancient practices to now. There might not be the English words for that because they don't match.
Perhaps I could do it with a poetic English-speaking person. I'm not sure.
Yes, I was just like, we have to find someone who maybe speaks both that could help.
But I use words a lot in my work, so it was just a way of being creative, also creating this existential menu and presenting it in a very poetic way, and also as a way to make something be, you know, interesting in a new way, give something, you know, a new perspective into something, so that people could be curious and not understand it fully and have questions and.
Well, it intrigues people. They'd want to come and see.
Yeah, instead of
what
just
this was all about.
Debunking it, you know, when you explain in this session astrological movings of the solar system are used to. Yes. And I wanted to present it in a different way, but that's something I'm very excited about. It's a way of that I have used to get deeper connection with myself, something to mirror on, and I really want to use my knowledge of, for example, just my knowledge of this ancient system of astrology that I've really been really reading into since I was 14 years old, and that's now 20 years of
reading and learning,
studying. So I wanted to use this knowledge and this system, this really, you know, because it's a magnificent system of something which has been really calculated and studied and used through so many centuries, and I wanted to use my knowledge of that to present it in a way that people could use it, be curious about something, and get a mirror to get to know themselves better. So I'm very into this existential studies.
And I love that you used the mode of contemporary art to bring that into the modern world, because it's such an ancient practice. But that dichotomy is really fascinating, that it's almost something ancient with something extremely new, and that those two merged, and here we are in this space.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a way of, also when I was putting together the concept of this space, I was thinking about this, concept of time, that actually everything which has happened and everything which is happening right now and everything which is about to happen, all is happening at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, and I love this idea.
I always found that very soothing. I always found, for some reason, I always have found, especially like entropy, I found it very soothing that everything just trends towards chaos and then contracts again, and then trends towards chaos and contracts again. I don't know why, but I found that cycle very calming.
Yeah. I somehow really enjoy going time traveling to the past and imagining that, the computer world that we have invented right now already exists then, and that's why the snake forms the @ symbol, that it always existed. Yeah, it always existed.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me about, because the exhibition has this posthumanity focus, and that was from a dialogue between me and the curators when I was telling them about my ideas about this space, because it also includes researching a bit, with what we can, what this means, this extremely rapid development of technology, and where it's taking us, and how it alters our consciousness, and what media is doing to our communication with each other, and our image of ourselves, and everything. But I'm entering it actually through my practice as a creative artist and practitioner of shamanism. So I go, take the route from the past to go into the future, instead of the other way around.
Instead of future looking back, it's like...
Yeah, so when you look around, it looks a bit vintage, this place, you don't see a lot of technology or new, media, and that's all, of course, that's also just because, I don't have, that's not what that's not my practice in art. I'm more hands-on. I'm a painter, I'm a sculptor, so that's what you see around. But also, I just find it interesting to enter the future through ancient past.
Well, and I like that you use like a piece of like antiquated technology. Yeah. Like the one piece of technology is a monitor that has a mirror in it. It's not a monitor anymore.
And also the keyboard of that, it looks like something from Star Wars.
It does.
It's visually extremely
it looks like
retro.
What someone thought was ergonomic in like 1985. They're like, oh yeah, this is how people like keyboards. And how, like, we had talked prior to recording, and so I wanted to make sure it's in the podcast. How would another artist like organize a space like this? Because I feel as though, like, if artists are listening to this, they might have wonderful ideas that they don't know how to organize, how to fund, how to like get off the ground. Like, how do you do that? What would you tell another artist?
Well, personally, when I graduated from my academy, my eyes were wide open. I felt like I had, like 100 eyes on my body, because I was looking for my opportunities to open a space. And it became my hyper focus after my graduation, because it was something I really wanted to do, or I could feel that it was my path to do, and I had to fulfill it. So every night I would think, what can I do? How can I do it? And I would read on like throughout history how artists had created a gallery on a jacket, inside a hat, in their little suitcase, and lots of weird ideas. And I thought, would that be something that I could do?
Yeah.
But at the time I was actually living in the house here in front. So that's another weird story. I lived there in a squat for like 5 years, accidentally somehow. And
just
it was,
accidentally.
it accidentally happened that I lived there, and during the economic crash, this house just went, got completely lost in the system. And
wow.
Well, yeah, it was also a lot of luck for me, because it gave me time to develop my vision for what I wanted to do in my art. And also, one summer night I was drinking wine in the garden, and I'm, you know, sitting here. This is my grandmother's house, so I was living in, you know, we had joint gardens, which was really beautiful.
That's wild.
Yeah. And, you know, I grew up in this house, so maybe I had a blind spot that this floor had been empty for 2 years because my grandfather had passed away. And his stuff was still here inside. It hadn't been completely organized, and his books were laying around, his artwork was all over, and I just remember taking a sip of the red wine and looking into this apartment and thinking, wait a minute, you know?
It's almost like, that's so fascinating that you were next door for 5 years, and then it was almost then over 2 years, like something to click, like to open your eyes to see that opportunity, that it was right here.
Well, it was, I had been, you know, I graduated in the spring, like in June I graduated, and I opened the first exhibition here in August, so it didn't take such a long time.
Okay, good. I was just like,
no.
I was like, how?
No, I think it was 2 months that I realized, oh, the space is right here, and there was a situation in the family that this work had still to be done, you know, to take care of my grandfather's stuff. So that's how it began, you know. It was one exhibition, you know, cleared his stuff, and I invited my classmates to you know, bring in artworks, and we had a show for culture night. It was like a 2-day show. And then after that I could feel that my family was still unsure like what to do with this space, and it needed a lot of work. That, you know, we realized that when we removed all furniture out, that the place needed a lot of work, so it was not equipped for anything really. So I could feel that, you know, this moment of thought that they needed to find out what to do would be, even though if it would be 2 months, it would be enough for me to do more work and have more fun. So I just put a name to the gallery and started having like exhibitions every 2 weeks. And that's
a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, because at that time I didn't know how long I would be here.
Yeah.
And it just went really well, and it got a lot of media attention, and it was really positive somehow, and it brought a lot of life into this house, and also a lot of things got, you know, painted, and, you know, and it wasn't empty anymore, so it created like this positive collaboration between me and my family. And 5 years went past. That gallery was closed down from, you know, as a concept. And now this opened, and this is also a conversation, like why I changed this. It's a conversation with my grandmother who lives upstairs. Yeah. Because as she's getting older, this venue also had to change. And I had to change it into something that could include my heart more, so that I would stay here more with her. I see. And that's why I first changed it into my studio. So the half of it was a studio. And I had my work, because it was a way of, we call it grabbing 2 flies at one, that I would be at work, but also taking care of my grandmother.
Yeah, American English is like 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though I don't know why we're throwing stones and you're catching flies.
So that was, so that was the first idea. And then I started, because I started practicing healing with a teacher. And I was doing a lot of work with my grandmother and with this house also. And then I realized that that was also a very important part of the venue, that it would be like a healing venue, not just a venue for crazy parties and exhibition openings, like it had been. Like some openings here had been a, you know, huge party, and that had to change as well. So so sometimes things happen, you know, in dialogue with so many different voices from the environment, that, you know, it's, you know, it's my brainchild, but it's also been a dialogue with this house. My great grandmother, who passed away a long time ago, who bought this house. Wow. Because I like to have her included in my decisions. Does she approve? What does she think? And that's how it's been going on. Like, and with funds, for the first year I was really a bit cocky and positive, you know, and optimistic that I could be here without any funds, just doing whatever the fuck I wanted. Like, fuck this shit. I like
that this is like the punk rock healing space. This is like the punk rock place to have your existential traumas repaired.
But then I, of course, realized that, you know, this work, it it just requires a lot of material.
Yes.
Which costs a lot of money. And I've been supported by the Reykjavik City Culture Council, and which has been like made this possible, really. And that means that I don't have to put my own money into paint and all material which is used to build here, and drinks for openings, you know.
Right, because you've really, like, looking at the space, especially when you spoke about how much work it needed, like, you can see how much you've done. Like, you can see the effects of what you've really worked on.
Yeah, you should see the pictures of their first exhibition. That's quite amazing right now. But I feel complete now. I feel like this is a really beautiful way to it's like at the final stage of the space, and I feel very happy that I'm at that point.
Yes. And I love the way that, you know, I feel like a lot of artists don't know that much about, like, writing grants or about getting funding and things like that. And I think that some people think that money either, like, is spirited out of nowhere, or you have to be, like, have a trust fund or things like that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that you're like, yes, like, City of Reykjavik is paying for this. I think that's important for artists to know, that you don't have to just, like, all of a sudden come out of nowhere with these supplies.
Well, I mean, this sounds really good, but you know, you also have to sacrifice a lot, because Reykjavik is not paying for everything. They're just feeding in like a little pocket money for this to work out.
Well, and you also have a day job as well, which a lot of artists I think also are ashamed of. And I'm like people don't have to be ashamed that they have day jobs. Like, there's a reason why. It's so we have money to do fun stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I didn't, you know, I didn't get a grant for the first year, and that's when I learned that it would be very important to get the grants the next year. So because I was very, you know, I didn't really care. I thought, you know, this is gonna work out fine. But then I found out that, you know, if artists were here working and they destroyed my tools and they left brushes with paint to destroy it, I got really grumpy. I was like, what is wrong with you idiot?
How dare!
Just stop destroying. And then, you know, I didn't like this dynamic between me and the artist, that I was really just like, stop being idiots and destroying my tools, you know. And I had this document that I handed out where I, you know, had to list everything out. Please don't destroy this, please don't destroy that, because everything here was just being destroyed constantly.
Oh, geez.
And when I got the first grant from Reykjavik, that was you know, just a huge release, that I thought, okay, now I'm going to buy just lots of brushes, and I'll never have to be grumpy ever again because an artist destroyed my brush
by accident. Yeah.
So that was just very positive.
Yes.
And it felt so good. And, you know, if something got destroyed, the floor from somebody's idea of spilling something, you know, it's so many things.
You're like,
happen.
We can fix it. It's
it was a bit of like, okay, you know, I'm gonna have to do the job, but at least I have the money to buy the paint. So
exactly.
But this, that was also part of why I changed it into a museum, because 5 years of running a wild art space like that.
Oh, I bet a lot of stuff got destroyed by accident.
Yeah, I got a bit like, okay, this is Groundhog Day. Something else needs to happen. So this is a more, you know, refined venue.
Yes.
As in, you know, because there are curators taking care of things, and I have the experience of, you know, doing everything, so I can be the technological assistant. I actually really like that. I like just getting stuff done like really fast, you know. I don't like the deciding where work should be put up, you know.
Well, and it seems like that appeals to similarly like your process of making art in a way that you described as hands-on, like doing sculpting and painting as opposed to any kind of digital art.
Yeah.
It seems like very visceral, like you're like, here we go. like we're gonna make the stuff.
And like, also this dialogue with the material that, you know, you're not alone. If you have clay in your hand, it's also a dialogue. Okay, I had an idea, but what does clay say? You know, Good morning, Clay. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I was curious about like the way that you made those candles when you said that about the flesh, like, because they're so vivid. And I was like, I was so curious how you made them, because they look like almost a similar texture to the melted wax.
Yeah, it's just a drip-on effect, you know.
Yeah.
Candles used as painting tools.
I love that.
Yeah, it's something I did as a teenager, and then I just did it as a graduated artist, and I thought, well, I mean, it looks good, and it's a collaboration with a lot of not only candle wax but also the fire. So it became a very meditative session, you know, to sit down with birchwood, wax, and fire, and make it, you know, lead me on. And it's always a struggle making this picture, you know. I never get any better at doing them. I've made a lot of them, but every picture is a struggle and a dialogue with everything that's going on.
Well, that almost connects to what you were, at least in my mind, what you were talking about with like the existential services of things that are like going within. And it's like, I feel like those are almost like an externalization of like what's going on within. That's like, that's the end product where you get like a physical, like, oh, that's what the struggle looked like in this format.
Yes, like a spiritual puke, like.
That'd be great. Here's some spiritual puke from Freyja. Well, and I love the idea of, you know, that you experimented with what kinds of things you like to do concurrently. And it sounds like you found your strength in like, I mean, can I ask, like, do you like your day job? Like, is it fun at all? Or is it just like you're just there, like occupying space or?
Well, I've actually been lucky with my jobs. I think they just really come in and out with the flow. And now I have a job where I'm taking care of a micro greenhouse. So I'm just watering tiny little microgreens.
That sounds so you.
Yeah, and it's a small business, so I'm the only one doing it, which is really good because I can just stay alone in my own world and have a dialogue with the seeds and the plants that are growing there. And it's actually sometimes when I leave the greenhouse, I feel very excited to see see everything, you know, next day, see how things have germinated. And, you know, it's it's a powerhouse to be surrounded by things which are, you know, coming into life.
Yes.
It's like the zygote, you know, the
zygote.
The
and
zygote,
then into
yeah.
the embryo.
I feel like that, you know, surrounded by zygotes, so.
And that sounds like almost like a creative process within itself because you're quite literally nurturing something to life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good job, you know. I'll have that until my next mission out abroad, so.
Yeah, because you travel a lot. Like, and because I'm like, spoiler alert for everyone on the podcast. I was like, I actually met Freyja because her friend was on my flight home and it turned out she had a gallery exhibit. So we met a year ago across the globe. But you said that was the last time you traveled, but that was unusual. Like, it sounds like prior you had mentioned like going to Norway and going to Berlin and going like...
Yeah.
So what's that like when you are traveling and kind of having your art practice in various locations?
I feel it has been very liberating for me to listen to my own voice and where art is leading me instead of being caught in something in a community and an art scene, you know, like in Iceland, which is very small. And I think this space and this new venue here, the museum, is definitely a brainchild from my travels throughout. For example, in Los Angeles, where I felt very liberated as a very spiritual person who also is a contemporary art visual artist running an art space. So that definitely was a helping hand, you know. It was a stepping stone in this, how this became into being. But
that's wonderful. I'm so glad that, because I do feel like in LA, I feel like, of course, I'm a contemporary artist that runs an existential museum. People are like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, great, cool.
Yeah, and when I came back, you know, I've been noticing lots of things that were to my liking across Europe and Eastern Europe also. And then in Los Angeles, where I could really just get in touch with so many different things, and people are there are somehow no boundaries in what you can do in such a big city.
Endless. So. It's almost like endless possibility. Like, if you can imagine it and if you want to get there, people are like, yeah, rock on, go.
Yeah.
Like, you follow that path.
I think for a moment I felt a bit, because I was really excited about reinventing this space, and I was really happy that it was happening and that things were finally coming together. But then for a moment I felt a bit sad that it wasn't happening in a bigger city, because I felt I might be marginalized here.
I see.
And we'll just have to see how that goes, because I think the traveling has also given me that, you know, I really don't care if being me is leading me into a weird spot in this city, which is kind of small. Then that must be just a question of time, or, you know, or who cares even, you know.
Well, and also it sounds like because you have relationships with other places, it's like, not that you'd recreate this exact space, but I have confidence that if you went to another city and wanted to create another like space for yourself, you could do that. It's like, now that you've created this, it's almost like, well, if I've created this, what else can I create?
Yeah. Well, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I feel it has been a lifesaver for me to travel as an artist, definitely. Because it has given me, well, actually I didn't know that this way of living would suit me. It came as a surprise, and also it wasn't something that I was looking for. I was very rooted and actually very a bit, you know, blindfolded here in Reykjavik with what I was going to do with my life, and suddenly I was just going all over the world doing exhibitions, and it all seemed to work out financially. I have these moments where I'm, you know, going to bed and I think, why is my life like this? It's not supposed to work out. And, you know, it's never, I can never look far into the future and think, oh, everything seems to, you know,
makes sense.
Then, you know, the money is flowing and everything's gonna work. It's not like that, you know. I have moments where I'm just like, this is ridiculous, it has to stop right now.
It was much like how we got into the John Grant show. That shouldn't have worked.
No, definitely. That's why I learned, just take one step at a time, because everything really seems to work out fine. And then I look back and I just think, okay, 3 years, lots of traveling, lots of growth and healing and building and, you know, creating and making things happen, and it worked out. So it taught me to be, you know, go with the flow and listen to what is right, you know.
Well, and it sounds like tuning into yourself.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself the space to tune into yourself and then to listen and to follow through on it.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to hear kind of that chatter that like you might hear and then go, oh, that doesn't seem possible. That's ridiculous. Why would I do that? But it sounds like you listen to it and you're like, that's a strange path. Let me figure out how to take it.
Yeah.
Like writing grants, transforming this space, like all the things. It was just like, it's like some part of you knew that was the correct path, even if it seemed a bit odd. You're like, no, I'm gonna give it a go.
And it's been working out fine for now 5 years after my graduation. I think until this summer I had a setback and I could really feel that I wasn't earning enough, and it was difficult to face that after 5 years of doing well. I was a bit surprised. I was like, okay, this is the end of the dream, you know.
Oh, and I think that that's tied to like the ego of like, oh, what if I have to take on another job? And people are like, does that make me not a real artist? And it's like, no, you're still an artist. Like you're still making things. Like you're good.
But I was also applying for jobs and just getting, you know, rejected. So I felt like, but it really made me think and made me sit down and think, who am I? What am I good at? What's the core of me? And how do I serve as an individual in this world? And it really took, you know, needed that rock bottom for me to realize what I can offer is that I've been reading about astrology for 20 years. So I started offering astrological readings for donations in this space, and that worked out fine, and that was just, you know, a moment of clarity, you know, what am I good at? And it was so funny because randomly I was surfing the internet and this video with a guy named Chris Crocker, which is some sort of a social, I don't know, just a guy who's, you know,
is he just like
video
a social
blogging,
media
something.
Yeah.
And I remember him from a very long time. He made a joke that went viral, but I'm not following him. This video just, you know, pops up in my world, and he starts, you know, answering a question that people have been asking him about it, which is, you know, why did you start doing porn? And so he's answering the question, and I'm watching the video, and he says, well, honestly, I was just really broke, and I thought, what am I good at? And I decided to see if I could maybe get a job doing what I was good at.
Doing what I'm good at.
And then I found out that actually I liked it as a job.
Yeah.
So that's how life worked out for me. And that was such a big, because clarity and, epiphanies can come from such
the strangest places.
Yeah. And at that moment I thought, I'm just really intuitive. I have read myself really deep into the systems of astrology and numerology, and I've studied healing. I'm very clairsentient on people's energies. And I just had to face the fact that I had been putting this aside to what do you call it? To not to scare people off.
Oh, to not like come across as like too intense or too like.
Yeah, and just be put in a box and marginalized, I think. And I wanted
like
to fit
not
in.
Come across as like odd or.
Yeah, and I just wanted to keep this out of people's knowledge of me somehow to fit better in, and I wanted to. I didn't want this to give people the opportunity to judge me in a way.
Oh.
But then at this moment, when I watched the Chris Crocker video, I had to, face myself and think, I have people, because people have different abilities, people have something different to give. This is one of the things that I have, and it is weird that I have put it aside and that I'm so shy about it. And I also had a very shy relationship with this in myself. And sometimes I would, come, peep out with a comment or say something, and then people would, get kind of weird and, not be sure. And it made me even feel more uncomfortable about myself.
Right, because then you're like, should I be ashamed of this? Should I hide this? Like, what should I do? I
got fed up with it all, and I just decided to, splurt it all out.
Just embrace.
Yeah, and
you said, your spiritual vomit.
Yeah. And it's so unfair because, when you feel things like this, it is your reality, and it's a bit like having to go into a fight with people that, blue is blue. It's just like, you don't even want to have the fight. You're like, okay, I'm whatever.
Yeah, this is...
Okay, bye.
This is your blue. Yeah. This is my blue.
Yeah, sure.
We're okay.
But it's so hard. But I've been studying with a teacher all year, so I'm getting a certificate soon. I'm like in practicing, practitioner, or what do you call it?
A practitioner of what?
Of healing methods
like
that I've been
arts.
Studying with a teacher. So that's what I included in the menu here. And I'm not sure. It wasn't even a big step. I think after the astrological readings, it was just all out. I was like, okay, what the fuck,
Yeah.
This is so weird.
Well, and it sounds like you gained so much to be able to tune into yourself for that. Like, it seems like now it's almost like those two parts of you are integrated. Like, the artist part of you and the healer part of you are kind of like...
Brought together by Chris Crocker.
Sponsored by Chris Crocker.
Why I'm doing porn.
Exactly.
Why am I a porn star?
And then you're like, wait a second. I have to be a healer and an artist at the same time.
Yeah.
I love when the world does that, when you're just like, I know that this doesn't seem like it would be the sign, but that was definitely the sign.
Yeah, that was the moment of epiphany.
What
am I good at?
What am I good at? Because it sounds like, what would you say is kind of like the best thing that your art practice has brought to you? Like, what would you describe as like the most positive thing that it's brought to you?
Well, I think because I really, I loathed being in school, like in high school and college. It was really, when I look back, it was just a nightmare of being caged, and I didn't really understand the rhythm. Like, I thought everything was so slow. I felt so extremely bored, and also socially, I felt really just off somehow. I was in this old-fashioned college studying physics, that was somehow the road I was taking in life, going into engineering. I could see how
physics and astrology could kind of match, but old-fashioned, I'm like, I don't see that.
Yeah, it was really, well, I took the wrong turn. Such a wrong turn.
We've made a detour.
And I did 4 years of that, walking down that road. And and then I went into the university. I started studying philosophy, and I changed into mathematics, and then I just, escaped that and thought, okay, I'm not gonna finish anything here. So I just signed up for all the Russian courses they had. What? Since I had already signed up as a student, I just got out of the philosophy department and signed out of the mathematics.
Oh my God.
Mathematics. And I just decided, because I lived in Russia and it was actually really easy for me. They were just studying the language and reading literature. So I had a very nice period of time there in the university, doing like being, you know, a bit academic, but, you know, finding it extremely easy because I had read everything and I knew. So I was so ahead, and it was, you know, really not fair actually that I was doing this on a university level, but I had a day job at the same time. So
you're like, don't worry, I was challenging myself in other ways.
So a long road in the wrong direction. But then I went into art school, and what I found was that it gave me my connection to myself again, to realize who I am, and this need for freedom, and also the freedom to create your own life, which has been taken away from us. And I built that connection with myself through art, that I could actually, instead of finding myself on the margin of society, or, you know, find myself to be so different and to be so perceiving and sensitive in a weird way that other people would find you know, describe as mental illness or you know, insanity, to create a life and find my way through this earth, and see that I am not actually, I'm, you know, the world is so big, and I was just in a very tiny closet, you know, in the wrong place.
You're in the wrong closet.
Yeah. And it's also such an internal dialogue doing art, because it's a lot of struggle actually. And if you are going through art school and you get criticized for something which comes from,
that's so personal,
inside of you, it really toughens you up, because you get very offended, and you have to really face yourself from being, you know, enraged.
Exactly.
And angry. You're like,
that was part of me.
Yeah.
That was important.
So I learned a lot, and it was a tough ride through art school, but it was a psychological, you know, rebirth.
Well, and it sounds
Definitely.
like that connects to then like the kind of like the gifts that you would get through healing.
Yeah, and art has a healing power, which is just it comes with it.
Yeah.
That people get into a creative flow that's healing, and so it's always been part of it. It's not just something that healers impose on it, or therapists create. It's just part of it. It's
inherent.
That's how I perceive it, at least.
Yes, I perceive it similarly, that it's like just the act of doing it is healing. And then if you get to share it with people, then that's like, then you get dialogue.
Yeah.
And that to me, I'm just like, in some ways I'm like, that can be fun, but in some ways, like, I don't know about you, but I like to sometimes just make music even if no one else is listening to it, because I just enjoy making it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I just like playing it. No one else is home. It's just me. But I'm like, I like doing it.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about, well, I've had this conversation with many people about imposter syndrome. And it's a bit of a, because I haven't felt that so much, the feeling of being an imposter as an artist, because I feel it's a bit, you know, it goes pretty deep, you know, to my being, that, you know, something could, you know, tell me that I should be skeptical that I am an artist. But I think it's, you know, also revolving, are you cool, you know, isn't that the imposter syndrome? You know that you're an artist, but are you cool?
Are you a cool artist?
Are you a cool artist? Something that I fortunately and also unfortunately have like a lack of care about, that and that's why my way through art has been somehow, you know, creating my own venue and, you know, going through my career in a different way than you can do, because I feel very disconnected to the well, I don't even have the words for it.
It's kind of like
feel
the
like
image.
Stupid like that.
No, it's so funny when you had said that, you know, that you didn't have like English words for things before, because you're so articulate and so like now I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's the way that you illuminate your thoughts is really interesting. Like, you're spot on, but it's the way that you express yourself. It brings me into your world. It like brings me into the way that you think about things. And so I was like, that's what I mean by articulate. And so it's really cool. It's cool talking to you about that. And now I'm like, I don't even remember what you were trying to articulate about like, oh yeah, about like feeling like cool. It's almost like being the image of an artist as opposed to an actual artist. Where like some people like to have that image, or like there are people who similarly with, I think, like music as well, where people have like the image that they're like, oh, I'm a cool musician because I wear this particular outfit. Or like I look this certain way, but it's like what makes you an artist or a musician is like what are you creating? Yeah,
I wonder, like, if you could ever, I've wondered if ever anybody could give me a grant that, could make me feel somehow different, that I could feel, oh, people now think that I am cool. Mm-hmm. Or, that this can be applied to me. But I just feel like a slave to my own ideas. I'm just following something, falling down a rabbit hole, and nothing can stop it. And this is just going to be my life. And sometimes I'm not sure how I feel about it, but imposter is not the word. I feel a bit like like I've, something has been programmed in me in a weird way, and that I have to trust it because it comes with a lot of passion and a lot of energy. So I just want to try and do something good with it, that I'm just not creating something really big and destroying materials, using toxic plastic stuff to create some nonsense. I really want to question my creations. Does it have an essence that needs to be brought into reality? But otherwise I just I feel like I'm on a leash to something that is just taking me.
It's just, well, I love that you described it as like you went on like the wrong path, like you went on this detour. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, once you found it and it grabbed you, you're like, okay, it's me and you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going far, far out. You're never going to know where we're going.
Exactly.
But we're going there fast.
Like, no time for questions. It's like someone made a joke one time about like the first person who like made a conga line, like that dance where you like hold on to people.
I love conga.
Imagine if you were like the first person that was in a conga line. The joke was like grab my butt, don't ask questions, just go. Yeah. It's like someone had to be the first person to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that dance.
So you're in like a conga line with your creativity. It's like don't ask questions, just Oh my gosh. Like, what would you recommend for younger artists, or even like if you could talk to your younger self and be like, by the way, this is what's to come. Like, what advice would you give yourself or a younger artist?
To myself as a younger artist, I would say that be prepared for some intense, scary stuff.
Yep.
And also, I would, let me think. I'm gonna think for a long while now.
I was like thinking about like the conga line. How do you prepare yourself for the conga line?
Well, I would like to say to myself that, to remind myself that, this is gonna sound so weird. Well,
it's all good.
I feel that, I was worried that I would be a freak in my community in Iceland, and that I would be somehow not in the flow with the group, or like I didn't see myself going with the flow of what everyone seemed to be doing, and I had worries that I would just become lost and alone and never included, or I would just be doing the conga line alone into the dark desert, and I would be a slave to that for the rest of my life. I don't know. This definitely relates to some childhood school trauma. Being left out.
To be left out.
But I would just like to, because I lost my voice through the academy. I really stopped listening to my inner voice, and I had to reclaim that after graduation. Had to go back and go like, okay, I put it aside because I didn't want it to be judged, and I just tried to go through school in a very academic way. And that was a big mistake. Well, I learned that it was a big mistake.
Right. Sometimes you have to figure that out by going, whoops.
I can't believe I did that mistake. I had been retaining I had been dedicated to my weird self for 27 years until I went to art school. I just completely lost it, and I thought, okay, you have to hide, Freyja. Don't show these people who you are.
Aww.
It was such a weird place to lose that, but then I regained it, and I want to tell myself and other people that it's the most precious thing that you have is your individuality, and the art world can make you scared of doing a mistake that you'll never be forgiven, that you did something which was not cool, and everyone knows. Nobody will forget, and that's just such a I was so scared of that as when I got into art school, because I realized something so precious to me, which was this dialogue to creation, and I realized that it had this world on its side which had a lot of shallow judgment, and that was actually something I really didn't want to be part of. Somehow I wanted more freedom. I wanted more I wanted more depth.
You said something that was striking, where you said, that the most precious thing you have is your individuality, that even though you might be afraid, even though you might feel like it makes you a freak, even though you might be worried about rejection, that it's like, ultimately that's like your superpower is your individuality. It's like the thing that just you. That's the most precious.
And also because you're alone with yourself in all this process all the time. So when you start to betray your own voice, things start to get a bit out of hand. So I had years of creating weird art for where I wasn't in tune, and I wasn't even and I wasn't using my
intuition.
I wasn't using my intuition also, because I felt like that was something I could never talk about, and also because when you have a lot of ESP and you use that in your artwork, you don't want that to be judged somehow. You just want to say, well, this is very important. This had to, be created, and please be careful. Don't say anything bad. Don't put negative energy.
just be delicate.
Be delicate. Be gentle. So that does not work in art school. Definitely
no, especially what you were saying about like having to have a thick skin.
Yeah,
when it's so personal.
So that person is creeping out now. I mean, that's really good. And as people say, the teacher comes when the student is ready. And this year I had intensive studies with the teacher. So I suppose it, I came, it arrived at the right time. And then this place is reinvented. And I'm officially running a contemporary art museum, which is also a very creative existential office.
That's the best.
For healing and card readings and all kind journey work and hands-on healing and what's more on the menu?
I was like, we can see the menu from here, because I think that that's a wonderful note to close on, that it like this space almost is the integration of the sides of yourself.
Yeah, it is.
That's really beautiful.
It is, and it makes me feel very complete, and it also regenerated my batteries for keep this running, because I could really feel after 5 years, I had been very careful for around 2 years not to have a burnout, because I'm very active and my energy can really just take me like a rocket, and I have to really